the speed of light. And I spent an entire day going through the calculations, figuring out that the ball, collides with the atoms in the atmosphere ahead of it and moves toward the batter, surrounded by an expanding shell of high-energy X-rays and fusion products and so on, which then hits the batter, picks him up, and disintegrates him, of course, and the bat, and the catcher, and the backstop, and then continues to gouge out this ever-widening trench of debris until it finally creates a crater some hundreds of meters behind the backstop and expands into a thermonuclear style explosion that leaves a crater, wipes out any nearby city, and just completely devastates the region. And then the last thing I did when I was working this out was I looked up the rules of baseball to figure out in this circumstance that by my best reading, and I'm not a sports person, that in that circumstance the batter is considered hit by pitch. And is eligible to take first base, should it be located. But when I finished this, I got I posted this and I was pretty proud of it. And then I got an email and I got a bunch of emails and people were really interested and they wanted to discuss the physics. And then I got one email from someone who said, "Hey, I work at the MIT High Energy Physics Lab, and your article got passed around and we liked it, and so I ran some simulations for you."
As you do.
And there are a few effects you didn't, there were a few things that corrections you wanted to offer. And some interesting effects. It turns out that if the ball is moving at that speed, it's high enough to overcome the Coulomb barrier, which means that when it hits the molecules of the atmosphere, they can fuse. What I didn't figure out is it's actually moving too fast, goes over the other side, and it will pass right through the air molecules, so it'll get heated uniformly, which means that the gouge, the effect is basically the same. It doesn't really make a difference to the batter, the crater, or to the rules of baseball. But I'm gonna and anything I write like this, I'll get these. I'm hoping if I ever publish a revision of this article, I can get to include all of the cool stuff people have sent me. But the weirdest place that this ever came up was probably, so a little while ago I did a comic, early on in the days of XKCD, I did a comic about poking fun at Richard Stallman, who's this sort of notorious character. He's kind of an outsized personality, and he's a crusader for free software. He's not, as it turns out, a crusader for open source software. There's a violent terminological dispute in that community, and he hates the term open source. So I drew a comic that had him fighting off Microsoft's assassins with the swords that he sleeps with under his bed, and so just that I thought was having fun, and no one minded that my caricature of Stallman. The problem was, I had him, as he faces off the assassins, raising his swords into the air. Part of his, the tirade is, open source will carry on. So I post the comic, it gets auto-posted at midnight. And I wake, and I had gone to sleep already by that point, but for some reason I woke up like I needed to use the bathroom or something, and because I'm one of those people, I open my computer as I'm coming back to bed and see that I have 2 or 3 dozen emails, and it's 12:30. All of them saying, Richard Stallman would never use the term open source. He hates that term. So the problem was I had titled the comic Open Source. So what I sort of thought about it for a little while, and I realized that I had the assassins say free software, and then Stallman says open source. So I went and I try not to edit the comics after they've gone up, but I could tell by the flood of email that I needed to stop this. So I was like, okay, I'll switch. I'll have the assassins say open source, and I'll have Stallman say free software. So they'll be using the term he hates, and he'll be correcting them in his response. And I figured so it still has the term open source in there, and the title is open source, but I don't have Stallman saying open source, so probably even on the internet, no one's going to be pedantic enough to be annoyed at the proximity. and my readers they're really nice, and I didn't get any, so I waited the rest of the day, and I didn't get anything else about it. No one complained about the word open source, and then like a day later, I did get one email by someone who was saying that the term is so hated in that community that its proximity to Stallman was a problem, and that I needed to change the title and the metadata about the comic to say free software throughout, maybe have some explanatory text. And I'm sort of rolling my eyes, and I get to the bottom of the email, and it's signed Richard Stallman. But he was really nice about it. We exchanged some emails, and I've tried to be better about that in the future.